Welcome to Fireside Giants, a featured podcast by Empire Sports Media. I'm your host, Alexander Wilson, and my co-hosts, Anthony Rivardo and Mike Irapino. But today we have a special guest on the line, the Entertainah, Chris. He's here to talk Giants football and the NFL draft, all the players that we just got and enjoyed. So, to get started, Andrew Thomas, number 1, first round, 4th overall pick for the Giants. What are you guys thinking about him? And is he our left tackle for the future?
First off, thank you for having me on again. Loved doing this last time, and I absolutely love that pick. And I think me and Mike were in complete agreement with we wanted a tackle there with that pick. Mike was even more outspoken about Andrew Thomas than me. I was always a fan of Andrew Thomas. I just didn't think we were going to take him. From everything that I was reading, I thought it was going to be Wirfs or Wills. It was always Wills or Thomas for me as my top 2 tackle prospects as the guys I wanted. I was slightly more to Wills. Mainly due to the fact that every expert I heard from, he was the most technically skilled. He had connections to Joe Judge. But Andrew Thomas, you couldn't have had a more productive collegiate career than he had. The guy didn't surrender a sack or a hit last year at Georgia. And I've been clamoring for this, not just while I was on YouTube, as a Giants fan for the last decade. I watched Eli Manning's first half of his career and the second half of his career. He just fell off a cliff, and a large part of it had to do with the fact that they couldn't block. And you invested a high pick in Daniel Jones, a high pick in Saquon Barkley. This is going to help the defense because they're going to be able to control the clock. I loved it. I absolutely loved the pick. It's a long-term thinking pick, but it was the right pick, and it was the right year to make it. So I absolutely loved the pick.
I'm with Chris 100%. I had Wills slightly ahead of Thomas, but that was my first love of the draft was Andrew Thomas. So, when I watched him, he jumped out the screen to me, basically. He was just so much bigger and athletic than most guys on the field. His run blocking was tremendous. He has that body type that can put at left tackle. I think he might start at right tackle, but eventually we'll have our left tackle of the future. I have no idea why people compared him to Eric Flowers. I did see that a few times, but when you do that, you're just not watching the guy, let's be honest. So when you watch Andrew Thomas, definitely not close to Eric Flowers. I'm confident he'll at least be a viable starter in the NFL at worst. So I think he'll be a very good player one day. I think at worst, we have ourselves a good left tackle for the future.
Yeah, I agree. I love the pick, and I love that he is a true left tackle. And if they want to, they can start him there immediately and move Nate Solder over to the right side of the line. And I think that's what they should do. And I did like Wills just a little bit better, but I loved Andrew Thomas, and I'm ecstatic about the pick.
Yeah, I think that's honestly, you guys hit it on the head with all of those evaluations, because Andrew Thomas legitimately has the highest low floor of all of them. He's going to come in like you said, Mike, and he's a good franchise left tackle for the next half a decade, if not more, which is a really, really big thing for the Giants. I just said today, Eli Manning probably woke up in a sweat from all the times he's been sacked and buried in the dirt, and he was like, Abby, thank God I retired. And then the day before, Gettleman's like, guys, I think it's time for us to solve this offensive line problem. I'm like, Eli's sitting here wait a second, now you decide you want to do this after I've been destroyed over and over and over again for years. He's probably like, wow, this is ridiculous. But on the brighter side, Daniel Jones has this line now that he can work with for the future. And that's what it's all about. You got to support your franchise quarterback and Saquon Barkley too, because they're going to build around Saquon Barkley. Look what Ezekiel Elliott did with Jason Garrett's offense. That those two guys, they did amazing things together. And I really do expect Saquon Barkley to have a really, really good year. And with a guy like Andrew Thomas locking down the left side, he's going to open up holes in the run game. And Mike, I know you've watched a ton of tape on Andrew Thomas, and you know exactly what he's bringing to the run game. And I want to ask you, what do you think is his best trait that he brings, and how is he going to open up those holes for Saquon?
He's super strong, and he just does everything right. I think he gets to that second level really fast. I've heard people say he doesn't do that well, but I don't think that at all. I think he gets to the second level very easily. I've seen him take out multiple defenders in the same play. So when you talk about just clearing out running lanes for people, especially Saquon Barkley, he will be tremendous at that. And I always say invest in your investments. You had Daniel Jones 6 overall. Mm-hmm. Then you had Saquon Barkley 2nd overall. You're now investing in your investments to basically have this left tackle here or right tackle help those guys succeed, and that's definitely what the Giants needed.
Love everything Mike's saying right there. I love everything Mike's saying. I'm in complete agreement with that. Was always my argument from the start for taking the tackle. And you brought up, first off, I think he will. I hope he starts at left tackle. We'll have to wait and see. They could cut Solder after June 1st. I think you'd be able to spread out the dead cap hit. You could start Fleming at the right side. We're going to get into the 3rd round tackle, who I really like, but I don't think he's ready yet. But, and if that's the case, you start Fleming and you start him at the left side. I want to see him start at the left side. But the point about Jason Garrett nailed it right on the head. Once they hired Jason Garrett, I was like 95% they're going tackle because, one, you look at the Dallas Cowboys over the course of history while he was there. They invested heavily in the offensive line. They took 3 first-round offensive linemen. In addition to that, the system that he implements, you need to be able to block. It's not like a West Coast offense. It's not like the Ben McAdoo offense where you get the ball out right away. You need that extra second, that extra 2 seconds to be able to throw those vertical routes down the field, and that's why they invested in the offensive line. And, of course, Saquon Barkley. And I think they're going to be able to focus more on giving the ball to Barkley, and it's going to make Daniel Jones' life that much easier. So it was a perfect pick. It was a perfect pick.
Absolutely. I agree, and I think Andrew Thomas is the best all-around tackle in the class. He's an excellent run blocker, but he's also a really good pass blocker, and he's a left tackle. So I think when you consider all of those things, it makes sense that he was the number 1 offensive tackle on the Giants board.
Right. And that's the whole thing about Wills. He was predominantly a right tackle, but the thing is, Thomas can play right tackle as well. I think he did it in his rookie season with Georgia. So we're looking at a guy that has a diversity, but he's also going to be locking down the left side because he has the most experience. And I think he started like 41 straight games at the position for Georgia, which is awesome. He has the experience. He's durable. That's the big thing. His durability really stands out to me because especially at left tackle, there's a lot of injuries, and if those injuries happen, it's hard to replace them. And that's why you have guys like Cam Fleming and hopefully Matt Pert who can come in and actually be, a pretty solid reserve guy while he's developing. And we'll talk about him later. I know Anthony's really, really in love with that guy. But I think this is, an amazing draft. I don't think I've been this happy about a draft in a long time. And I did love the Saquon Barkley pick. And Daniel Jones ended up being a lot better than we all hoped he would. So those are 2 awesome drafts in themselves. And we got a lot of great players. But this one has just fantastic written all over it. The depth pieces is where I really want to talk about later, and we're going to go through every single player. But the depth that they instilled in positions of absolute need is what has me really excited for the future. But as for pick number 2 in the second round, number 36, Xavier McKinney, that is a fantastic pick. And Chris, I want to let you kick off with him because you look like you want to talk about him.
I'll tell you what, man, for everybody that was all about Isaiah Simmons, I'm not saying he is Isaiah Simmons, but he could bring a lot of the things to the table that people that were clamoring about Isaiah Simmons was going to bring. The guy had, I think he played 4 positions where he had over 100 snaps last year for Alabama. Wow. Obviously has the connection to Joe Judge. You can move him around. And that's one thing I want to harp on too, not just with him. We're going to get into the future guys on defense. This is a positionless defense. So a lot of people look at the slot corner in the 4th round and they say, why did you bring him in? You got Julian Love. Now you added a safety. They're going to have a lot of different formations. Maybe sometimes you're going to play McKinney at the linebacker. You're going to play Peppers at the linebacker. They want to have options and different looks that they could throw at the opposing offense. And I was a huge fan of that pick. He was projected to go to the Cowboys at 17. And in my opinion, the only reason the Cowboys didn't take him was because CeeDee Lamb fell in their lap. And once CeeDee Lamb fell in their lap, there weren't a lot of teams that viewed safety as their number 1 priority. And that's why he fell to us. And I think he fits our defense very well. That was a slam dunk pick. I didn't do a lot of research on him because I didn't think he was going to be there when the Giants picked. But then when I, read the things I read after he was chosen, I was like, I like this guy, and I think everybody's happy now. The people who wanted the defense, you still got a really good defensive player in the second round who most people thought was a mid-first round pick, and you got your future left tackle for the next decade. So it couldn't have went better. It could not have went better, the first 2 picks for the New York Giants, in my opinion.
That's a good point about being Isaiah Simmons light, basically. That's a very good point. He did play a lot of positions. When I watched him play, he played a lot of free safety, strong safety, in the box, slot cornerback. He can move everywhere for you. So, yes, he's not Isaiah Simmons, but he's not that far off either. So I'm very good taking this great left tackle and then taking another guy that can do a lot of things that Simmons was doing as well. And as you said, we can move Julian Love now to places we couldn't do before, and same with Jabril Peppers. So this adds so much versatility. And don't forget about Darnay Holmes either. So a guy like McKinney, I think he's a very underrated tackler. He's laid out some big hits in his career. I think pretty good anticipation when he's in pass coverage. So got to love all that stuff. And people liked him. I thought for sure he'd be a first-round pick. I did 2 mock drafts on the Mike Too Nice channel. I had him going 14, I think, to the Buccaneers, and then somewhere in the mid-20s. I did not think in a million years we'd get him at 36. So, of course, I was thrilled when that happened.
Yeah, that's exactly it, because I know that on this channel I've been pretty open about how I didn't want them to go safety in the second round, but that's because I never expected Xavier McKinney to fall into the second round. He was projected to be a top 20 pick, and you don't pass on that type of talent at 36 overall. I know the Giants did have a trade lined up in case McKinney didn't fall to them at 36, but luckily he did, and they got a really versatile defensive back who can even play in the box, like you mentioned, and it's a slam dunk pick. It was a complete steal.
Yeah, like you said, I mean, I had Antoine Bethea. Sorry, I imagine Antoine Winfield.
Don't ever say that name
there.
again. Don't say that
I
name.
I know. So actually, I feel like I should leave now. And I tweeted out, I was like, I never want to have to say Antoine Bethea or Curtis Riley or any of these guys, their names ever again. I want to have the free safety position locked up. And this is why I am so excited about McKinney, because like you said, he's kind of Isaiah Simmons-like. And before I thought he was more of a free safety. And that's what Antoine Winfield Jr. brings. He's a strict free safety. But McKinney isn't just a free safety. He can play in the box. He can rush the passer from that safety position. That's what I really like, because Patrick Graham is one of the most blitzing defensive coordinators from the safety position. So I fully expect to see three safety looks a lot with Jabril, McKinney, and Julian Love. Them rotating and not knowing where the defense is going, offenses are going to have so much trouble to interpreting what's going on there. And McKinney can rush the passer pretty well. If you watch him, he is so fast on film. His 40-yard dash was a fluke, I think. He said he can run a sub 4.5. I think he ran like a 4.62 or something. So it was a lot slower than previously thought. This guy can fly, and he can play in the box. He can play free safety. So the Giants can lock down that deeper portion of the field with a ball hawk style guy, but also develop him into more of a strong safety player who can, supplement an injury just in case. And having guys like Jabril, Love, and McKinney who can play in the box and free safety is amazing, because that way, if you have any injuries there, you can rotate those guys around. And if they're all healthy, it's going to be impossible to tell where this defense is going and what they're going to do. So I'm ecstatic about McKinney. But in the third round, this is Anthony's guy. So I want to let him start off with him. Matt Pert from UConn. Fantastic talent. And he has so much potential, Anthony. I want to hear what you have to say about him.
Yeah, Matt Pert. I'm not sure how to say it yet, but I'll figure it out. I watched him about a week before the draft, and I was like, why is this guy projected to go so late? He looks so technically sound. Like, he already looks ready. It's just, he was playing at UConn, and he wasn't going up against the best competition, so he's not ready. But he's just got such a great baseline of technique already. And he's not the strongest guy. He definitely needs to add some strength and some knee bend in that regard. But the technique, the way he mirrors pass rushers off the edge is what really stood out to me. He's got really great footwork. He does need to improve the hand placement just a little bit. But I think overall, if you wanted to throw him out there as a starter day one, you could get by with it. I think it's better if we just let him progress for like a year and develop behind one of these tackles that we have. Since now, and this is a shocker to say, we have depth at offensive tackle, which is as crazy as it is, but we have depth. So let him develop for a little while, and he's going to be like a legitimate starting right tackle in my eyes. I see it. I think that he is just a steal at number 99. I woke up that morning, I was talking to my mom because she's also a big Giants fan, and I was like, yeah, there's this guy out of UConn I hope that they get with the 99th pick. And she was like, UConn? What football player comes out of UConn? I'm like, this guy, you'll see. And then they drafted him, and I told him, she was like, you just said that. I was like, yeah, I know. And I was super, super excited about it. I love this kid. I think he's going to be great for us.
Yeah. I'm in complete agreement with you. He was a guy that I think a lot of the people that wanted Simmons wanted them to target right where they took him in the third round. And after they took where they went Andrew Thomas in the first round, I wasn't even thinking about him. I was thinking center. I'm like, they got to go center here. They got to go center. They're going to go Tyler Biotish. They're going to whatever. And when they picked him, I was surprised, but it was in a good way, because I think this is forward thinking. This guy, like you said, he has the potential to be one of the better tackles in this class, one of the top 4 or 5 tackles in this class. I believe he had the longest arms of any tackle prospect at the combine.
Wow.
And he's got a lot of things. He's got a lot of tools. Like you said, the book on him, got to put on muscle. I think he's got to add 10 or 15 pounds of muscle. But I think with the ability to sit behind Solder or Fleming or whoever it may be, sit and learn for at least 8 games, similar to what they did with Julian Love last year. Don't play the first 8, 10 games. Learn the position. Going into 2021, the other thing it does for everybody that's about the splash picks, the wide receiver, the edge rusher, that gives us the freedom next year. Now you got your right tackle. You got your left tackle. The guy we're going to talk about potentially could be their center in the 5th round. We'll see how that works out. You got your guards. They got a lot of versatility here. And I love what they did in this draft. I absolutely love it. I know it's a boring draft sometimes when you go offensive line, but it was a draft that was necessary. Once they picked him, I was like, at this point, it's a great draft no matter what they do the rest of the draft. I'm good to go. And then I still like some of the other picks they made, but we'll get into that.
Yeah,
Chris,
I wouldn't even call it boring.
Definitely, I agree with that as well. There was a lot of forward thinking in this class, though, this draft, I should say. I mean, lots of it. So when you take positions that you don't necessarily need, like we do have 2 guards, and Kevin Zeitler, Will Hernandez, and Shane Lemieux did play guard. He might play center. We'll see how that pans out. But that was not a pick I was expecting either. Then we take Matt Pert, another guy I was not expecting because, yeah, you have now Cam Fleming, Andrew Thomas, Nate Solder for next year, but the Giants aren't necessarily thinking about next year. This is more down the line for Matt Pert. I think he's probably hopefully a 2021 week 1 starter. Maybe he'll get some run next year. We'll see how that one goes. But he has experience. He played 2 years at left tackle his first 2 years in college. Then his final 2 years, he played at right tackle. So he has versatility with both positions. His arms are almost 37 inches long, which is insane. That's I cannot crazy. Imagine that. He was very good at scoring up his blocks. And I think Alex mentioned this before. He was just very good at mirroring the pass rushers between the quarterback and the pass rusher, not allowing any give to get pressure on the quarterback. I was very happy with the footwork and stuff like that. Yes, he could fix his hands a little bit, but for the most part, Matt Pert, especially at pick number 99 and the upside he possesses, I thought that was a great pick.
Absolutely. And I think the biggest upside about him is that we can think that Gettleman might have just secured a left and right tackle in one draft. That is very, very hard to do. And a guy like Pert, he was the highest graded player at the Senior Bowl. So you know how much Gettleman likes the Senior Bowl, and we know how much he prioritized fixing this offensive line this year. And I think he did a phenomenal job in these first 3 rounds, putting together a really good base of talent. And especially because he also said that you can't have enough great players at one position. And having a guy on offensive line who can play right, left, and is projected to play a bunch of different positions and can, adapt, that's a really high upside player that I really like to see. And Pert really possesses all the physical traits. And a guy like Mark Colombo and Jason Garrett coming from Dallas with their offensive line, man, I can't even imagine what they're going to do with this kid and make sure that he is maximized to his fullest potential. And I can't wait to see him eventually take over that right tackle spot. At least I'm going to manifest it and just say all the positive things I can, because if it really does happen, this draft is going to be one of the best we've seen in years, like by far. And like Mike said before Chris, but like Mike said on Twitter like 2 days ago, Joe Judge had an influence in this draft. He had a very big hand in this draft and what players they were going after. And I think that he made some really big changes in the way they were evaluating talent. And I know Gettleman is really good at finding offensive line guys, but I think Judge really had a hand in all of it.
Yeah, I definitely think it was a collaboration. I completely agree with Mike on that. But the other thing I try to give Gettleman credit when I can, because I think a lot of people bash on him. Going into this year, yeah. No, but somewhat you say is definitely justified. Going into this year, Dave Gettleman, all reports, he's on the hot seat. He's going to get fired. Jerry Reese was in the same position in 2016. He spent all of our cap on, on quick
5-year deals.
5-year deals. And what Dave Gettleman did in the draft here, it wasn't for this year. He knows he's on the seat. He made these picks for the next 10 years. And I commend him for that. Whether or not he keeps his job or not, respect. I think he deserves a lot of credit for that. A lot of credit for that.
That's a great point. I never really thought about that because, like you said, Reese was like, oh, my job's online. Let's spend all their money and see if we can get to the playoffs now. And he did get to the playoffs. But after that, man, we were just screwed because we had all this money tied up in players and our youth, our foundation. There was no depth. We had no depth, though, if injuries occurred, which they did. Like Olivier Vernon went down and Damon Harrison was always carrying some sort of injury. We saw a lot of guys struggle. And now we're seeing, Gettleman, and I think that's an amazing point, Chris. That's fantastic that you brought that up. The fact that he decided, I'm on the hot seat, but the reality is I care about this team so much that I'm going to put them in a position to succeed. And that really shows me what type of person Gettleman is. And I know he has a lot of respect for the Giants organization based on, his past and him working, and he's friends with John Mara. So I think that that's a really good point. And I think that, the Giants are in a good position for the future now. But I just imagine if they had this draft 2 years ago. This type of draft 2 years ago, we would be in a totally different space. So I'm happy they finally came around and put together something that we can all be proud of.
Absolutely.
It feels like the last couple of drafts, though, you think about 2018, I feel like a lot of it was like reaching for need in a way. Now that I look at this draft and compare this to the past couple of drafts, it's like, yeah, they needed an outside linebacker in 2018. You take Lorenzo Carter, not necessarily a reach. And, left guard, I think Will Hernandez was a great pick. But, he was trying to fill holes back then. I think now this draft, we're just seeing basically we're taking the top guy on our board. We don't care what position it is. And that's definitely the best way to draft, in my opinion.
Or at least the best player available that.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
yeah, and I agree with that. I think there's definitely been a change in the way that they drafted. I think that's demonstrated most clearly in our 4th round pick with the cornerback out of UCLA. Yep. I'm forgetting his name, so Alex, you can go ahead.
Holmes.
There you go.
Yeah, from UCLA. This guy is 5'10", 195 pounds. So he's a little small, but what cornerback isn't a little small in the NFL? Because he's projected as a nickel guy. So we're expecting him to go slide into that slot position. So here's the thing. I see a lot of people saying, he's the best nickel prospect in the draft, this and that. He's never really played nickel in his career in college. So we can project him as that, but we know he does not possess the fundamental skills to actually play that position just yet. He is a developmental pick that we are going to be working on and creating competition for Julian Love and Grant Haley in the slot, and probably Corey Ballantyne too. So I really like this pick because it offers a high athleticism, high upside player that you can inject into that slot position. And he is feisty. This guy can hit. He's strong for a guy only 5'10". If you see him, and he is an elite kick returner. If you watched him at UCLA, he had some sick returns. So I'm really excited to see him contribute. I think he'll probably offer a lot to the special teams in year one. Maybe he can get some reps in at slot, and they'll just kind of ease him into play. But I think he's going to be a great special teams guy to start his career, and then hopefully develop into that further spot.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And the other thing I wanted to touch on real quick was we were talking about the change in philosophy with drafting, and I think Joe Judge has a lot to do with that because Joe Judge's philosophy, they don't have positions on defense. It's positionless. So he wants to find the best available player that could play all over the field. It's not like he needs a guy that's strictly an edge rusher. He wants a guy that could be an edge rusher. He could be a safety. So he was just looking for guys that can move around, that are good football players. And I think that had something to do with it. In terms of this guy, I didn't know much about him. I'll be completely honest. When they drafted him, on my live stream, I said they might go with pride because I did think that they could take a slot corner in that spot. I wasn't necessarily hoping for that. But when they drafted him, did some research, like you said, great athlete. I think he ran a 4.46 or a 4.48, whatever it was.
Yep.
4.48. Yeah, 4.48. And like you said, great athlete, potential. And that goes back to what Joe Judge said, I think like a week ago, when asked about guys that they may potentially draft. Joe Judge said, we're not necessarily going to draft guys for what they've done. We're going to draft guys for what we think that we can make them. And they may view him as a guy with their coaching that they can make an elite nickel corner, and it just adds more possibilities in that secondary.
Yeah, Chris, you bring up Troy Pride from Notre Dame, I believe. Darnay Holmes probably one of the fastest cornerbacks in this entire draft. But I do think the Giants got a better football player here, and that's what we should care about, honestly. I mean, I haven't watched a ton of Troy Pride, but I watched at least a couple games, and I did like Darnay Holmes a lot more. I mean, this guy started as a true freshman. He's still just 21 years old, too. So you talk about a guy that can, if he has to, sit down for a year, basically, and learn a lot of things, still very, very young. So I love this pick. I watched a lot of them because I was trying to pay attention to the slot corner type guys in this draft. I love Terrell Burgess from Utah as well. I forget where he went, but he's another guy I liked. So taking Darnay Holmes was a pick I loved here, a pretty good 40 time as well. I think, as Alex said, very, very feisty. That's something you notice. And, yeah, he might get beat on the outside on some deep balls, some jump balls with guys that are bigger than him, like guys that are 6'4", 6'5", but that's natural. I mean, I'm 5'9". I can't imagine going up against these 6'5" receivers. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So I think for Darnay Holmes and what he has right now, I think he's a very good player. I think he'll compete to play in week one, honestly. He might be our week one slot corner. It would not surprise me.
Yeah, absolutely.
I agree. I think he has a chance to start week one. And I know someone might bring this up in the comment section that he actually didn't play slot cornerback in college, but he finally got to try it out at the Senior Bowl. And he said he loved it. And that's what he wants to do in the league because he was really good at it at the Senior Bowl. If you guys watch any draft videos, draft analysis videos leading up to the draft, everybody was talking about how bad the cornerbacks were at the Senior Bowl, and the receivers were just dominating them, except for Darnay Holmes. He was the only one who really stood out at the Senior Bowl, and that's something that really gives me a lot of encouragement. And it obviously showed up for Dave Gettleman. We just mentioned how much he loves the Senior Bowl. That's definitely where he found the talent in Darnay Holmes, and I love this pick.
Absolutely. And two things I want to mention about Holmes and his development. One thing is he graduated from UCLA in less than 3 years. That is incredible. So we know he's a super intelligent guy, really high character. What I noticed about this draft specifically is that the Giants targeted high effort mentality guys, really smart. Andrew Thomas, he's a musician. He's super smart too. It's really hard to be a musician if anyone's actually tried. So I can tell you these guys are a little bit different than the players we've seen in the past. They're really, really intelligent. They're going to come in and really set the stage in the locker room. And I think at the slot position, a guy like Darnay Holmes is going to benefit a lot because the Giants have a lot of good slot receivers and, Sterling Shepard, Golden Tate. He's going to be working against them in practice. You're going to get really good at covering the slot when you have players like that, to compete against just versatile and dynamic players like Shep and Tate. So hopefully that helps him in his progression. But on to pick number 5. Who was it? Who was the pick number 5? They all get jumbled together.
Yeah, Shane Lemieux.
Yeah, fantastic. Guard out of Oregon. He's projected to be an interior guy, can play center and guards positions. What do you guys think about him?
Yeah, I'll start. One of my subscribers brought this up to me, and I didn't even think about it after they drafted him. All the reports came out about the New York Giants scouting out Justin Herbert.
Mm-hmm.
They interviewed him several times. His guard was Shane Lemieux. So maybe they were looking to get intel on some of the players that were on Oregon that they were potentially interested in. Yeah. So Shane Lemieux recently was taking snaps at the center position. We'll see if he could do that. If not, again, long-term thinking. First off, I think there's going to be a competition for the center. I think he'll be involved. I think Gates will be involved. I think he'll be involved. I think Poley will be involved. Or maybe they'll add somebody else to free agency. We'll have to see. But worst case scenario, this is a guy that most people had ranked between 3 and 6 in terms of the guards in this year's draft. He's a tough football player. Reminds me a little bit about Hernandez. Didn't surrender a sack, I think, in over 400 pass attempts this year at Oregon. Really like the pick. And that's all I got to say. And it's long-term thinking. You look at Kevin Zeitler. Kevin Zeitler's only under contract for 2 more years. He could come in and take over for Zeitler after 2 years. Or if Zeitler regresses this year or he gets injured, he's only a $2 million dead cap it next year. I'm not hoping for that. I like Zeitler. But if they decide to cut Zeitler, they think this guy could start. You're saving a lot of money. You're paying this guy like $800,000. That gives you an additional $10 million on your cap. So like we've said with some of these picks, we're not just thinking about this year. We're thinking about 5, 6, 7 years. And this was another example of that. Instead of taking this 6'4" receiver there, they elected, you know what, we could get these guys undrafted free agents. We could have them come in and compete. How often does a wide receiver in the 5th round pan out anyway? Last year it worked, but more often than not, it's not going to. Let's get a guy that we could build, we could coach up, and could be a starter for us in a year or two. If not, be our starting center this year. So, love the pick. I thought it was a great pick.
Yeah, it wasn't necessarily a need for the Giants, as we said before. And that first thing I did when they drafted him was look into Kevin Zeitler's contract, as you just mentioned. I do think they can save like $12 million after next year. So that's something that they have to keep in mind. And if Kevin Zeitler starts to, go south when he's over 30 years old, then you basically cut him and save all that money. And you start Shane Lemieux for $800,000 a year or something like that, which is fantastic value. So he was very durable in college, 52 consecutive starts. You have to love that. He can play all 3 interior offensive line positions. Very strong guy, good hands. And I think like when I watched him on tape, when he gets his hands on you, it's like it's over. It's like guys really can do anything. There were some times where he missed. I saw one guy hit him with a spin move and he completely whiffed on him. But when he gets his hands on you, I mean, it's basically over. So I think this was a good pick. Another pick I was not expecting, but then again, we're thinking for the future here. This guy can be a very good guard for a long time, so I was very happy with it.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting it either. I definitely didn't think they were going to draft a guard at any point in this draft, but I do like to see that he has a potential upside to come in and compete for the starting center job right away. And, of course, as soon as they drafted him, I thought, well, Kevin Zeitler, he's getting older, and he does have a pretty inflated contract, so as soon as that's up, one thing that you can also keep in mind is that we are overpaying Nate Solder, and we pay a lot of money for some tackles and guards, and they play like below average, right? And I would rather pay, like you said, $800,000 to a 5th round guard who plays around average than $5 million to a guard who plays around average. And so even if he doesn't become the starting caliber player that we want him to be, he's going to be a cheaper below average player than we would have found in free agency. So at least that we can point out. But I do think that he's going to be good. I didn't know much about him until after we drafted him, but I went and I watched it, and he's a mauler. He likes to hit people. He's really aggressive, and I like his play style.
Yeah, and Gettleman said Lemieux, I think Lemieux, right? Is that how we're going to pronounce his name?
Lemieux was the Yankees guy.
I know, I'm like Lemieux. So Gettleman said he plays mad. And I love that. He plays with a chip on his shoulder, and he's going to be one of those guys, like you said, if he gets his hands on you, he's not letting you go. And another big thing, a big factor that kind of comes back to what I was saying before, he was referred to as the team leader in Oregon. That's what Lance Zierlein of NFL.com says. He was described as the team leader. So we know he's a high character guy who can lead. He's going to be good in the locker room. And we're seeing another pick that the Giants and Gettleman and co have instilled to fix these, these cultural problems. That this is, where Joe Judge, I think, is instilling his authority here, is that he's really focusing on the psychological aspect of these players and what they bring to the team on a mental level, and what they're going to do to help all the rest of the players, just succeed. And like he said yesterday, he wants to build a team and not a group of 53 independent contractors, right?
That was a great quote. That was a great quote.
A fantastic quote. And that's what said to me, this isn't like the normal drafts that we've had. because I'm starting to factor in all of these mental attributes and these leadership qualities. And I'm like, wait a second, these guys aren't just good players. These guys are good people. And that's where it comes down to building a family, building a team. If you look at like the 49ers and the Chiefs, they care about each other. You see them on the sideline. They're like trying to get each other to play at the highest level. And that's what it takes to win championships and to get to the playoffs. And I think those are the type of players that they're starting to bring in. So that could also be, something you connect to free agency with Blake Martinez. He looks like that kind of guy as well. So I'm really excited about Lemieux and what he offers, in the fourth round. So hopefully, or rather the sixth round, right?
Fifth
round. Fifth round. Yeah. Like we had so many draft picks later in the round. I'm starting to just blend them all together. And I'm pretty excited about that. But on to the next pick. Do you guys even remember who it is?
Cam Brown.
No.
Cam Brown, pick number 183.
Yeah, outside linebacker Cam Brown for Penn State. He knows Saquon Barkley and he knows Grant Haley, so he's pretty familiar. But I want to let you guys dive into him first.
And he knows. I thought you were going to say, and he knows Coach Chaos. Our D-line coach for Penn State. And I thought that would be a theme, familiarity. With the coaching staff. Obviously, we bring in an Alabama guy. Joe just got ties there. Here's an example of that familiarity. Who knows what he's going to be? One thing that I loved was how he was bashing the Cowboys on social media right away. Grew up a Giants fan. Loved hearing that. It was the same thing with Pert. Pert grew up in the Bronx. And grew up a Giants fan. I think that they probably brought him in more so to be a special teams contributor than anything else. We'll see. I think he provides depth to the linebacking core. Do I expect him to start? No, I don't think he's going to be a starter. I think he's going to be a special teams guy and a depth piece in the linebacking core. But that's what you're asking for in the sixth round. And Joe Judge definitely made that a point of emphasis the last 5 picks. He was definitely looking for, in a lot of those picks, for guys that will contribute in special teams. And kind of had to expect that, being that that's his background. So thought it was a good pick for the sixth round. It's a good pick.
Yeah, the thing that stands out about Cam Brown is the length he possesses, 6'5" and 34-inch arms, so you love that. He ran a 4.740. He thought he could have ran faster than that, so him being disappointed in that probably makes you think he might be a 4'6" guy, and running that at 233 pounds is pretty insane. Another guy with a lot of versatility. We saw him playing some inside linebacker, outside linebacker. He even could play defensive end at that 6'5", 230, weight and height, so that definitely could work as well. It's just a long-term upside type pick. I think Joe Judge had this quote probably a few weeks ago that we're drafting these players for the long-term upside, and that's exactly what Cam Brown is. I'll admit I did not watch Cam Brown before the draft process, but of course watched a lot last night. And you know what? He's a guy with a lot of upside. You have to fix a few things here. Could get a little stronger. I mean, he does fall for some play action fakes and all that type of stuff, but that's happens a lot in the sixth round. So you know what? If the coaches do their job here and can coach this guy, like, he has things that you can't coach, all the physical traits and stuff like that, you can't coach that stuff. So taking a chance in the sixth round on a guy like Cam Brown is probably something that's worth it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head, Mike. The upside is there. He has the versatility. He played on the edge. He played inside, and he could play the D-line. And we know that's something that, like you mentioned earlier, Alex, it's going to be a positionless defense, and you're going to see a lot of versatility in this scheme. And that's something that Joe Judge preached day one. He wants versatility. He wants guys he can move around. And Cam Brown is potentially another one of those guys. So I like the pick.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm looking at him right now, and he looks crazy athletic. Really, his weaknesses, they're saying, is marginal instincts. He attacks before reading, forced wasted steps, and he takes himself out of plays. So essentially, he's just not the best instinctually in diagnosing what's going on. But this is all mental things that can be refined with a good coach. So I think the Giants see his athletic build and what he offers in that sense, and hopefully they can develop him, get him some more size. He's going to need a little bit of time to get bigger, but he's going to be a really, really athletic off-ball linebacker for the Giants. And another guy, and I'm going to keep hitting on this, he's an incredibly high-character guy who was known to be the leader of the Penn State defense. So that's a really, really big point to make. And, this is one of those players, especially in the later rounds, the teams will start to invest in high upside athletic players. They're really just fundamentally, mistrued a little bit. So I think he can be a really high value player for the Giants. On to the next guy, though, Carter Coughlin, outside linebacker for Minnesota. This is a guy who's pretty interesting as well. He's a little undersized, but he has athletic. Another guy that has high upside, but I don't know if you guys know much about him. I'd love to give you the chance to evaluate him a little bit.
Yeah, he seemed to be a fan favorite in terms of some of the later round picks. And I saw one stat one of my subscribers showed me. I think he was second, if I'm not mistaken, in the country. I could be wrong. I got to look back at the stat in generated pressures for the edge rusher position, somewhere along those lines. A lot of people like his ability. He's athletic. He's a late round edge rusher. He's a flyer. But again, these are guys that Joe Judge has said, He brought in teachers. He's a teacher. He's going to try to teach these guys up to make them football players. At the end of the day, it's kind of like the last guy we just talked about. He's a guy with upside. If you could teach it properly, he could be a really good player. And out of all the late round picks, I think he's the most likely to actually have some kind of role with the defense this year in terms of getting to play on a consistent basis. I think he could be a situational pass rusher for this defense this year.
Yeah, I agree. I saw a lot of things that I liked and then some things I didn't like. We'll get into those later, but he can play defensive end or edge just like Cam Brown, in my opinion. He has really good football IQ. He was sniffing out some screen plays and stuff like that, good tackling technique. The thing I didn't like too much is that basically on a lot of his sacks, not all of them, but on a lot of his sacks, they were stunt plays where he just had a free lane to the quarterback, which is why you sometimes can't read into the stats and stuff like that. Another thing I didn't like was that in 2018, he basically had his breakout year. He had 9.5 sacks, I believe, his most tackles for loss. And then in 2019, he kind of took a step back. But when I looked at his stats, he did have his most passes defended in 2019. So maybe they used him in more of a pass coverage type role or something like that, which is why his stats didn't look so good. We'll see. But I don't know. I'm not too optimistic about him like Chris is. I could see this guy being a special teams player. I don't really have too much faith in it working out. He's just a good IQ type player. Kind of what I thought Ryan Connolly was last year, but then again, I was pretty wrong about Ryan Connolly. He seems like more than just a special teams player. So we'll see how this one pans out. But I like that he can get to the quarterback. He seems like a good locker room guy and stuff like that. So it's a seventh round. So I mean, I'll take it.
Yeah, I'm happy you mentioned Ryan Connolly because that's who I was going to bring up here. Ryan Connolly ran a really nice 10-yard split last year at 1.54 seconds. And Carter Coughlin's isn't quite that, but it's at 1.61. So it's pretty solid. And I think that's definitely a theme now for Dave Gettleman is when he's looking at these linebackers in the later rounds, he wants to see how quickly they can get into the backfield. And that's a 10-yard split. That's a stat right there. So that shows high play recognition. If they can really put that together, they can get in the backfield and blow up some run plays. And so that's where he provides his potential, maybe as a gap plugging run stuffer.
Yeah, absolutely. I see Carter Coughlin, he's an outside linebacker. So him and Connolly don't really play the same position, which really only tells me that he's super athletic. He's 6'3", 236 pounds. He ran a 4.57 40-yard dash, which is incredibly fast for an OLB. So that's pretty awesome to see that he's extremely athletic. And he has, like Mike said, he's a high football IQ and a really good motor. But he did turn over a lot of forced a lot of turnovers last year, with 3 forced fumbles and 9.5 tackles for a loss. So he knows how to get into the backfield. That's one of the big things that I like about him is that he can get into the backfield. He has the athleticism. So another high upside player. He's a little on the smaller side, but if he can gain some weight and put on some muscle mass, I think he could be a good player. And especially on special teams, at a certain point, Joe Judge is also looking at these later round picks and saying, who can help our special teams? Because we know he's that coordinator and he's phenomenal in that facet. So looking at these guys, he's like, okay, as long as they can contribute in some way, we're good. Like that's the main goal here is to have them at least produce in some way, whether it's on the defense or on special teams. It doesn't really matter. But finding these high intellectual players who are smart and can make plays just based on that alone, diagnosing things, that seems like pretty high upside to me. But on to the next pick, TJ Brunson, inside linebacker. I know Mike did a lot of research on him, so I want to hear what you have to say about it.
Yeah, I mean, he seems like a tackling machine type guy. When you look at his numbers, he averaged 7 3-point tackles per game since 2017. But he's not like this gifted athlete, and I did see some other negatives as well. He missed a good amount of tackles when I went back. I watched, I think, 3 full games of him. There were some plays where I was just rolling my eyes because he did have some missed tackles in the open field. He's just not gifted athletically, and he could get a bit stronger. That's really the thing. But I think, I compared him last night to B.J. Goodson. I think those guys play a pretty similar way. I think Goodson was a 5th-round pick, if I remember correctly, or a 6th-round pick. But I think Brunson and him share similar playing style. So I do think it can be another depth piece once again. There's going to be a lot of guys who are competing for this linebacker spot. I said last night, I don't think Brunson, Brown, and Tay Crowder are all going to make the team. I think one of those guys is probably going to go next year because you just don't have enough room on the 53-man roster. You could put them on the practice squad, of course. I just don't see them all being active in week 1. But, I don't see a lot of upside with TJ Brunson, but he can be a good run stopper. I like how he just takes on anybody. He doesn't back down from any challenges, any blocks. So I like that about him. Does struggle in coverage. So, I mean, it's not the highest upside pick, but it's not a bad pick either.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on this guy. Maybe a special teams. He sounds a lot like Mayo. When I read the things I read about him, he's more of that old school linebacker. I didn't do a lot of film analysis on him like you did, but seems to me like it's a 7th-round pick. When you're in the 7th round, you're throwing darts at a dartboard. At the end of the day, you're hoping that you hit on one guy. But I think I think the last guy we talked about was more of an upside guy that may have some kind of influence on the roster. He, to me, he's a strict depth piece, especially when you look at our linebacker core to begin with. He's a guy that maybe contributes at special teams if he's going to make this roster. He's going to have to impress in the special teams department. Yep. But in the end of the day, 7th round. The one thing I'll criticize them for, and this is me being nitpicky because I love their draft. The one thing I didn't like was holding on to all 4 7th-round picks. I wish they would have moved back up into the early 6th round, late 5th round, tried to couple some of those picks, move back up and get somebody a little bit earlier. That's what I'll say if I got to nitpick anything that they did.
That's fair. I mean, that's reasonable. But at the same time, to counter to that, I would say, like, let's look at New England right now. A lot of their players they find are late-round picks. And giving up on a player, because like essentially if you have to package those picks together, you're giving up on 2 or 3 players, people that could be surprising. And we've seen New England find these late round, like nobody players from nowhere and plug them in as serviceable players. So I think that's where Joe Judge is coming in here and being like, we can find value. We don't need to trade up to get someone in the 6th or 5th round, because at the same time, 7th round picks are like pretty much no value. So packaging them together to move up in the 6th round is basically the same thing as saying, why don't we just wait and pick 4 different players and improve our probability of getting a good one? So that's why I think that's why I would say, like, that's why we hold on to the 7th rounders and invest in players. I don't think TJ Brunson will make the team personally. I think Carter's probably a little bit better. And then Chris Williamson, who we'll talk about next. I want to give Anthony a chance to chime in here. But Chris Williamson, who's coming up next, I think is a sleeper in the 7th round. I don't think he's going to be like a starter at elite level, but I think he has a lot of potential based on his athleticism. We'll talk about it in a second. But Anthony, what do you think about TJ Brunson?
I don't really know too much about him, to be honest, but I just like that they're adding depth at positions like this because especially in this defense, I think it's going to be you need a prototype, and then you're just going to have players who fit that mold, and they're going to go out there and they're just going to have a job to do, and they're just going to focus on that job. And some are going to be better at doing that job than others, but everybody's going to be able to at least serviceably do that job. And I think that this is another one of those players where solid depth, and you never know. You take a chance on these late guys. One of them could pan out and be legitimate. And it's not likely, but it's, like you said, throwing darts at a dartboard.
Absolutely. And as for Chris Williamson from Minnesota, quarterback. No, not Chris Brown. We're not having that much fun right now. Chris Williamson. I'm kidding. We're having a great time. He's a really solid cornerback from Minnesota. Another guy who can play nickel, and that's what I think they focused on here. Like I said before, they're investing a lot in depth here, and kind of reworking. It was very clear to me that the coaching staff did not like their depth at linebacker, because they took 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 players at linebacker to build out the depth and hopefully add some nice rotational guys in there. But a guy like Chris Williamson can come in and compete. He is pretty athletic. I don't know if you guys know much about him, but he was a 243rd overall pick. He is a feisty defender who can play his zone. He's willing to jam to the line of scrimmage. Solid size. He has good speed. But I think he's one of those guys that will probably compete with Holmes on the interior and hopefully prove some competition there, because Grant Haley, we cannot trust him in coverage anymore, fellas. I am not willing to throw out Haley, and he's good against the run, but he is not a guy I'm willing to trust in coverage anymore. I think Julian Love's better rotating in free safety with McKinney, and he's a little bit slow for the interior position. I think he can do it, but like you guys said, you guys kind of converted me over to this Darnay Holmes guy. He seems quick and fast. I really like that upside of him. But what do you guys think of Williamson? Do you think he can, as a 7th round pick, at least compete at some level?
Yeah, again, I don't expect him to. I expect him to be another depth piece. My guess is he doesn't make the team. I think he's going to be a practice squad guy. I could be wrong, but you look at this secondary, you've got so many guys already from last year's team. Corey Ballantyne, we haven't even talked that much about. Julian Love, sure. Sam Beal, we haven't talked about. But he's bringing guys to compete and to earn their spot on the roster. My guess would be he will not make the team coming out, but maybe they view him as a long-term project. Like you said, he's athletic. Maybe he could work his way up on the practice squad. We know better than anybody. Victor Cruz was a practice squad guy. Didn't make the team his first year where he impressed, came on, contributed to a Super Bowl run. So my guess is he's not going to have any impact on this team this year in terms of being on the roster. I think he'll be a practice squad guy. But you never know down the line. Maybe he will have some kind of impact due to his athletic potential.
Yeah, there are things to like about Chris Williamson. There's some downsides as well. I'll start with the things I didn't like first. So he missed a lot of tackles, probably the most out of these guys we picked here because I watched, I think, 2 games of Williamson.
Terrible
Missed
technique.
a good amount of tackles. I did not like what I saw there. He played in a very zone-heavy scheme. I don't know if it was just the particular games I watched, but it seemed like almost every play Minnesota was doing on defense was zone. So I'm not really sure how his man defense would be. When you look at his highlights, he did have some man coverage things that looked pretty good. The things I liked about him in man coverage, even playing some passes, he was really good at timing passes and just knocking them out at the right point. Like, you can't have pass interference, of course, because if you hit the guy's arm too early, then it's pass interference. But he was really good at timing, like when the receiver was just about to catch the ball, knocking it out at the right time. He also used the sideline to his advantage as an extra defender. So he was really good at using the sideline and kind of pushing guys out of bounds in a legal way, and did a good job of, having spatial awareness there. So, he did play at Florida in 2015, 2016, did not play a lot. So transferred to Minnesota 2018, 2019, did not put up the best numbers there was out there. And another thing I realized is that, back to the versatility thing, he played a lot of like outside linebacker, it looked like. It was really weird. He's not going to play outside linebacker at 205 pounds in the NFL, but for some reason, Minnesota felt the need to do that. And I guess he does add some versatility, but then again, he does have his tackling issues, so I'm not sure how they use him. I agree with Chris. I think this is a practice squad guy. I'd be surprised if he makes the team, but we'll see what happens in July and August, I guess.
I think
Absolutely.
The main point of all of these late 7th round picks is the Giants are just filling out the bottom of the roster. I think I read a report that the coaching staff wasn't really happy with where the bottom of the roster was. And I think that they were just prioritizing adding solid depth pieces to that bottom of the roster, getting some solid contributors down there because, we've seen injuries strike this team before in the past few years. And once we get to the bottom, it gets really, really bad. So I think that they're just trying to prioritize having, once we get to the bottom, if we do run into like a string of injuries, it's not as bad as it has been.
Absolutely. I think that's honestly a good point, just building at the bottom of the roster like that. But Mike, like you said, he has pretty bad tackling technique, and that's a point that I wanted to hit on before we move on, just talk a little bit more. But Joe Judge made it known that they're going to be practicing in pads with tackling, live tackling drills. And that is good news to me because we saw so many missed tackles last year. Alec Ogletree is like a machine, man. He's like iRobot for tackling problems. So it's that's my biggest concern is we have to fix that. And if you look at New England, they don't miss tackles. They are very strong in that category, and their defense is strong because they do everything right. And players that you wouldn't think would be that great just emerge and are fantastic, and because they get the fundamentals down. And Joe Judge is going to really, really harp on that. So a guy like Williamson, who might be able to fix that fundamentalistic tackling problem, could turn into a solid player. And like what I'm seeing with a lot of these later round picks is that they have the developmental upside because their fundamentals are the things that are plaguing them. Those are the issues. But if they can kind of tweak those things and fix some of those minor problems, they can contribute in a way. I think the ones that aren't as athletic, like TJ Brunson and Tay Crowder, might be the ones that get left behind.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to target players like that because that's what Judge has expressed from the start. Even before his comments before the draft, he said he's a teacher and he is a teacher. He's got a doctorate in education, I think, and he wanted to bring in a lot of coaches that are teachers as well. So maybe he's a guy they feel like they could teach up, and over time could be a big time contributor for this football team. Haley's kind of the opposite. Haley's a really good open field tackler, but he can't cover. So, he's kind of the opposite. Maybe we could combine the two and we get a really good player.
I was going to say the same thing. Yeah.
It's the athletic differences, though. Like Grant Haley's not that athletic. That's the problem. No. He can't really keep up.
He can't keep up in the slot. Covered. Yeah.
Exactly. He's always lagging behind. And that's where they took a different approach this year. And they're like, okay, we're going to invest in guys who can keep up that just have tackling problems because it's more fundamentalistic than athletic. We can teach people how to tackle, but we cannot teach people how to run faster, to a certain degree, at least. So that's kind of where I see, them going with this draft. But with the last pick, Tay Crowder, and I know Mike just did a little research on him, so I'll let him kind of dive into Tay Crowder a little bit.
I might be a fool for this, but I really like this guy. I've watched 2 games of him, and then just I don't know why he went so late in this draft. So he's 6'1", 241. He went to a good program, well coached. I thought he had pretty good speed. Now, Alex called him a sloth, so we might disagree on that. He did not run a 40-yard dash. So I think for an inside linebacker, not that slow, in my opinion. So his play recognition to me was pretty impressive. I saw him blow up a couple screenplays, stuff like that.
Yeah.
He even blew up Cole Kmet, the tight end for Notre Dame, on a passing play. I think it went for a completion, but he still like lit him up on the play. So he did have some ball skills at least. And I think he has some really good potential in pass coverage. I think he's pretty athletic. There's a lot to work with here, some good upside. So I do like him more than the Carter Coughlin type or the who's the other guy, Chris Williamson. I do like Tay Crowder a bit more. I know he's picked later, and the odds are against me here, but I really hope they give this guy a shot to make this team. So he didn't put up like great numbers, of course, and he could be a little bit stronger, but for the most part, I do think this guy has all the tools. We've been saying that a lot for all these guys, but I really do think Tay Crowder is one of those guys that has the tools to one day maybe be a starter.
Yeah, he's Mr. Relevant.
I hope so. I'm going to have to take a deeper look into him. To be completely honest, I passed out after the draft. Didn't get a chance to look at the film for all these really late guys. We'll have to wait and see. One thing I'll say about him, he went to Georgia, right?
Yeah.
The one thing I'll say about, I'm pretty sure we have a coach on the roster that's from Georgia, if I'm not mistaken. I'm almost positive on that. And maybe that's the one thing that we should have even talked about even more was I think the Giants going into this draft had a huge advantage with all these college coaches that came over because they've recruited all these players. They have all the inside
great
information.
programs too.
They've played against them. They've coached against them. They've coached them. They've recruited them. So I do think the coaches had a lot to do with all of these picks. And I think Gettleman used the intel to make some of the selections.
Absolutely. And one thing that to even build off of that, Judge went a step further beyond the coaches to go and ask the actual players about teammates, like about players that they were targeting. So like you said before, Justin Herbert, that was an awesome point. He was probably like, Justin, like, what do you think about Shane Lemieux? Like, how was he for you? And was he a good guard? Like, how did he perform? Did he protect you? Did you ever notice any pressure from that side? I'm sure they asked him questions to kind of get some more information about him, which is awesome, So I think that they did a really, really phenomenal job in evaluating players on a different level this year. They really used the coaching staff, other prospects to get their information. And Joe Judge knows. I think we're seeing a little bit of how, Bill Belichick does things and, how in depth he goes to really find out the most information about these players. Because like I said, it's been maybe 7 years since I felt good about a draft like this. Like through the whole draft, I feel pretty content with everything that happened. So I want to give everyone a chance to give a final grade on it. So I'll start with Anthony. What do you think, this draft, if you had to give it one grade, what would it be?
I'd give it an A, and it's because of those first three selections mainly. I think all three of them were home runs. I think you found your left tackle of the future. You found maybe one of your best defensive players on the team day one in the second round. And I think you found a really solid potential of your right tackle of the future in the third round. And then fourth round, I think you got a great slot cornerback. And that's something I want to mention real quickly because you guys were discussing the differences between Grant Haley and other slot cornerbacks. And I think that that's something that the coaching staff is very aware of. And we keep mentioning how they're going to be very multiple with their defense. And I think what you can look at is somebody like Grant Haley might just be there on the goal line because he can make those tackles if they run the ball and he doesn't have to keep up with people on the goal line. But then you see Darnay Holmes, if they're on the opposite side of the field and they might be running some deep shots, then he gets plugged in there. So I really like the way that they prioritize depth in this draft, and you're going to see them plug these players in and fit certain molds, and they're going to play just to their strengths, like Joe Judge said, from day one. So I love this draft. I have so much more confidence in the team than I did. I was really feeling, really upset about the direction of the team over the past couple of years, but it's all looking better now, and I'm really happy with the direction that Joe Judge and Dave Gettleman, too, are putting this team.
Absolutely. Chris, I'm going to give you the next shot.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go B+ because I just don't want to seem way too biased. I'm always very positive about the New York Giants, but I mean, if I got to nitpick anything, like I said, maybe you could have traded up in the 7th round. Maybe you could have addressed the center sooner. Maybe you could have gotten a tall wide receiver. There was definitely some wide receivers that were leaking late in the draft. Hodgins was a guy I liked, maybe in the 5th. But overall, I like pretty much every player that they brought in. It was very long-term thinking, and it was definitely a collaborative effort. I love what Dave Gettleman did. Like I said, I wanted to back him up on that because he did not try to save his job like Jerry Reese did when he was in the same situation where he took a luxury pick with Evan Ingram in 2017 when he couldn't block.
Crazy.
And
Unbelievable.
you got TJ Watt on the board. You got Ramsick on the board, and he goes with a tight end who can't block. Dave Gettleman thought that the next 5 years, 7 years, that's what this draft was all about. He set it up for Daniel Jones. And I think we're going to look back on this if Gettleman does get canned or retire in a year or two. And if the Giants get put on the right track, I think people are going to look back on this draft and the year prior, obviously drafted Daniel Jones, and they're going to give Gettleman a lot of credit for the team's success 5 or 6 years from now. I think Gettleman did a great job. He put his legacy before the money going in his pocket. And I got nothing but respect for what he did in this draft, and I got nothing but respect for Joe Judge. And in the same way that they handled free agency, same thing. Didn't go out, didn't overspend. It was short-term deals. It was forward-thinking, brought in good leader guys like you said. It was a clear plan from the start. Joe Judge is clearly a meticulous guy, brought in coaches that he's very familiar with. It's great. I love the direction of this team. I love the direction of this team. I just don't want to oversell the excitement because I don't want people thinking that, oh, we're going to go 10-6, 11-5. We're going to win a Super Bowl. We still got to be diligent. We got to be patient. But this team is definitely headed in the right direction, and I think we're going to be very competitive for like a 5 to 10 year stretch.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I mean, this is as I said yesterday, if you follow me on Twitter, this is the first time I feel good about the direction of this team in a long time. Like, the older I get, the more and more I follow the Giants, of course, and like the more I understand football and all that stuff. But, you know, I'm not going to say like when I was 12 years old, I was watching the 7th round of the draft, of course. But like even now, at least the past few years when I was really into it, it's like this is probably the best draft and offseason I've seen overall. And I do think Joe Judge and all these new coaches, even the Cowboys guys, Colombo and Jason Garrett, all these guys have influence on it as well. So I do think you're right. If the Giants right here have a bunch of guys from this draft class that go on for the next 10 years to be very good players for this team, Dave Gettleman deserves a lot of credit, and I'll be the first one to do it. I mean, I know it's hard for me, but I would do it for sure. So I think my grade for this class, probably an A- to an A. I love the Andrew Thomas pick, love the McKinney pick, I love the Darnay Holmes pick. I like the Pert pick. I like the Lemieux pick. The other guys after that, I'm kind of iffy on. But, hey, I mean, they're guys with upside that you take a shot on. It's 5th, 6th, 7th round guys at that point, or 6th and 7th round picks. So, honestly, who cares? You take a shot. You see if it works. You put the trust in your coaches, and hopefully it does work out. But overall, I like the direction of this team. But as Chris said, we can't expect to go 12-4 next year. There are, steps to take here. It's a first-year head coach, all that stuff. But I'm not going to count the playoffs out yet. I mean, there's a chance. I'm definitely optimistic. It really all depends what Daniel Jones does in year 2. If he plays at an elite level, which some quarterbacks do in their second year, I think Carson Wentz did, if I'm not mistaken. Jared Goff got a lot better, guys like that. So it could happen. Patrick Mahomes, I know he didn't play his rookie year, but you know what I mean. So guys in their second year at quarterback can take that, monumental step, and then the Giants can once again be an elite team. So we'll see how Daniel Jones develops. But they help him for sure.
I just want to cut in real quick. You're right. And I try not to get the fans' hopes up too much, but you're right. Don't rule the playoffs out. I'll say that. Don't go into there hopeless, because even though on paper we might say, look at that schedule, 5-6 wins. If they can establish an identity, they got the best, in my opinion, the best running back in football. You now have a line. This is a team that was averaging 5.6 or 5.7 plays per drive. So the defense was always gassed. They ranked 27th in the league last year. If you could flip that, jump from 27 to 10, you flip the time of position from where you're averaging 28 minutes a game to 31, 32, your defense is now on the field 3-4 minutes less a game. That alone makes the defense better. Even if you had the same roster, now you bring in an improved coaching staff, better defensive players. I think it's going to be better coached. Don't rule it out. If they could establish that ground attack with Saquon Barkley, it's going to make Daniel Jones' life so much easier. And I'm going into the year with at least some hope.
Absolutely. And I think you guys are hitting it all on the head just over and over and over again. I can't even say how hyped you guys are making me. I'm ready to run through a wall right now. Just based on the fact that the Giants turned this team over in the past offseason. Just this offseason, look how many different pieces we have already on the board. The offensive line is pretty different already. Our right and left tackles are both going to be different. Assuming Nate Silver goes over to the right side, that's essentially a different player, because we don't know what he offers there. So we really can't expect him to do good or bad. It's really just let's see what happens. And then we're going to have Nick Gates or whoever playing center. We don't really know yet. And then you have the defense, Blake Martinez, James Bradbury, McKinney. There's a lot of guys that are there now that we didn't have before. And then, throw in Fackrell. They're going to scheme a pass rush, right? And here's before I give my grade, I want to just talk about the pass rush for a quick second, because this is one thing everyone is very, very scared about. Defensive coordinator Patrick Graham loves to blitz with linebackers and safeties. They will find players to rush the passer. You don't need an elite pass rusher when you have unpredictability going on. Obviously, I would prefer to have an elite pass rusher, but right now we're stuck in a position where we still have Solder on the books. We don't have the capital. We're not winning a Super Bowl next year, but we can make big steps forward. And that's where you go with these 3-year deals. When you're on the verge of making the playoffs, or you're making the playoffs consistently, that's when you make a move for a big-time pass rusher, a big-time playmaker, or a wide receiver like that. that's where we're looking right now, and where the pass rush is. We're in a good spot, and defensive coordinator Patrick Graham is going to help us get there. So I'm hoping that all this comes together and all these new players really benefit the team. But I'm going to go with the A- as well, Mike, and I think we're averaging out here at about A-. Just simply based on the first 3 rounds were phenomenal. The last the middle rounds and the later ones were pretty good. High upside guys, athletic, really good mentality players, and smart, intelligent people. That's really what I'm taking away from those later rounds. So I think they did a phenomenal job this year, and everything is looking brighter. And I haven't been able to say that since I've started covering the team about 2 years ago. It's been a rough ride, and I haven't really been able to compare the bad to the good because there hasn't been much good, especially since diving in. Chris, I'm sure you've been doing this for a lot longer, so you've seen the better years for the Giants.
I've been on YouTube for 2 years, but
yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
so we've been doing this. We've been looking over this crappy team, and it's really hard to say how do you compare a really good team to a bad one when you've never seen the good one on this type of level? Like that, we're looking at it every day. We're looking into this team and delving into the coaches and players. We don't really know how to compare them just yet. So now that we're seeing the positives and what Joe Judge is doing here, we're like, holy crap, we've been really screwing up the past few years, or we've been really missing things. Now we're seeing those just awesome, just the diving into the coaches and really knowing the players and prospects before they're drafted. Totally different than what I've seen in the past 2 years.
Yeah, and we couldn't have started at a worse time. I mean, literally, the 2017 was the most disappointing year ever. Then I started in 2018, and 19 were horrible years. But we are finally getting in the right direction, and we're getting back to what the New York Giants were when we were really good. 2008 is the best Giants team I've ever seen. I've been watching the Giants pretty religiously since about maybe 98. 2008 was the best team, and the thing that sticks out to me with that 2008 team, on the offensive side of the ball at least, you knew what we were going to do. It was like you guys are Yankee fans. I'm a Met fan, but it's like Mariano Rivera. Mariano Rivera threw the same pitch every time. You knew he was throwing the cutter. You couldn't hit it. The 2008 Giants, you knew they were going to run the ball down your throat 35 times a game. You couldn't stop it. And we're getting back to that. We're building up the offensive line. We're establishing that identity, and I couldn't be happier. I love the direction of the team.
Absolutely. Yep. Well said. And Chris, thank you for coming on Fireside Giants again. We always love to have you. This is honestly one of my favorite episodes, just diving into these players and really just the excitement I hear in everyone's voice. I haven't honestly heard the excitement from everybody like that in a while. So it's awesome to hear. And, everyone that's tuning in, thank you so much. Make sure to go follow Chris on the Entertainah on YouTube and Twitter. Awesome content. You did a phenomenal job covering the draft. There was a lot of sick content out this year for the draft, and I was really excited to be a part of it. So I hope everyone really enjoyed that and is staying healthy and safe during these times. We're getting to the end, fellas. Slowly but surely, we're going to get there. And,
let's have some football this year. I want to have some football this year.
Exactly. I want to have some football too. And I'm hearing good things about sports reopening. They're really starting to, put some things in motion, which is a music to my ears. Believe me, I'm getting bored here. But on the brighter side, we have a lot to look forward to. Thank you guys for tuning in and really just giving all this support to us. It means the world to all 4 of us. And we really hope to produce even better and more quality content for you in the future. So thank you. And we will talk to you guys next time.